But when I say God, man, there's an image of a guy that I don't like, you know, and that troubles me because I cannot be wanting to engage with that higher level of consciousness with that image, because it's going to perpetuate and manifest the things that have left me outside of the margin of things.
This is the Hustler's Corner.
Hello squatters, welcome back to Virtual Mkuku. We're no longer just building Mkuku, we're building an entire squatter camp. So we're squatters here on this virtual land with this technology that's been created. Thanks so much guys for tuning in once again. This is all happening on the Hustler's Corner. The first thing we do, as tradition here, we go straight to that shop sign on the count of 1, 2, 3, let's go. Click, 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 click. We click it and then we click the subscription button. Click. The community has been growing. I'd like to welcome all of our new members or our new squatters. Welcome, guys. Thank you. This platform brings people that come to educate us. We just have conversations, and through those conversations, we get to learn. So they might be coming from the business fraternity, they might be coming from politics, they might be coming from whatever it is. We just want to learn. As some of you guys who've been with this platform for quite some time, you do know this is all about us learning from one another. And you know, I'm never alone. I'm with my, what do I call you now?
Almost call me your father. No, just co-conspirator in changing minds, uplifting minds, and changing the mental landscape of our squatters.
Well, good to see you, my brother. You are?
Thank you very much, brother.
Lovely.
Easy.
Thank you. Siyabonga. And the person we're sitting with today is a preeminent and pioneering SANGOMA who has successfully merged the sacredness of African spirituality with modern thinking. She's a celebrated spiritual healer, a life coach, an African storyteller, an actress. She's a writer, a dancer, and trained facilitator. Teaching is at the heart of what she does. She's incredible. She is amazing. She is a trained Sangoma and Gobela. She has been instrumental in changing perceptions around the practice of Ubungoma, which is a type of African spiritual healing. This has made her a household name in South Africa and with Africans in the diaspora over the last decade, and she continues to shift mindsets by encouraging people to access African spiritual healing modalities and indigenous knowledge systems. She has successfully used mainstream and social media to destigmatize the practices of African spirituality using her outspoken personality and educational nuances. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome onto Virtual Mkuku, Mkukwini, with all of our squatters out there, Gogo Dineo NDLANZI. Siyabonga. Thokoza Gogo.
I love that you can pronounce my surname. People don't get it.
It's got an N.
Yes, so they missed the N.
When it doesn't have an N, it's DA.
Yes.
If it's got an N, it's NDLANZI. Yes. And because before the Z, there's also another N. Yeah. So it's NDLANZI. For those who are not from South Africa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, it happened.
Are we allowed to give the backstory? No.
Penuel, I'm actually embarrassed.
Yes, okay, here comes the backstory.
Yeah, let me just give the backstory. We spoke about it, guys, on, I think, one of our episodes, a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah.
What happened. But anyway, just to cut the long story short, I go to my DM one of these days, and then I bump into a message she had sent me a few years ago. I think it was 2016.
No, 2020, during 2020. Lockdown. I was doing this on Instagram.
Yeah.
When we hit, COVID and, when did we go into lockdown?
2020.
March.
Yeah,
March
so
2020.
I decided to do, teachings on African spirituality, as almost like what you're doing, but focusing on entrepreneurship, different topics. Then I was like, oh, DJ SBU. Then I DM'd you and you never responded, and...
Oof. What a horrible human being.
And just to mention, yeah. I recently saw that message, but I've had to respond. And then I've had to Google. When I Googled, and then I stumbled across her name and I started reading some articles. And then it happens that she has been spoken about a lot lately. And I felt so embarrassed that I was also not aware of the work that you had been doing recently.
Yeah.
And with what I'm going through lately and the journey that I'm walking, mina khona manje, I'm just seeking knowledge.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that there's people like you that are sharing knowledge. So siyabonga ukuthi uzosivakashela.
I mean, I say one of my favorite quotes that I use is that Lozi timing is perfect timing.
Come
so
on.
it had to happen this time,
Come on.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
On this platform, because you have consciously created a space where people can learn from different teachers and people who have different knowledge systems to bring in there was no delay, or you are not a bad person. You were Lozi led, and this is the perfect time to do it. And I'm sure that it's going to be even a perfect conversation.
Ngiyabonga. I think let me start before I give it to Penuel. Ngicela ukuqala ngokuncoma for wearing local brands. You look stunning.
Thank you.
Stunning. Awusemuhle. Awusemuhle because you're wearing local brands. Umuhle because these local brands, I always say to people, don't support me because you're supporting a local brand. Support my stuff because my stuff is good.
Yeah.
So the way you dressed, I mean, I'm dressed in the same shoe. I didn't even know you were wearing it. It drip, yes. For me, Patu and Drip, we're all family,
Yeah.
So big up. Is there a conscious decision for you to wear local brands?
So for me I come from the background of black consciousness. So I was a radical, I was a revolutionary, and to a point where I refused to wear anything else except if it was made.
Cheers.
And at that time, we didn't have designers like we have, like Abo Makhosa, like Abo Ntozi that we can buy from, Primitive Native. So these are the people I buy from. We didn't have them. So I kind of look off, and I had dreads in 1999. So when I had dreadlocks in 1999 and I was in corporate, I was labeled untidy. So I really refused when I understood what colonizers did to us. But I realized that radicalism was really not getting me anywhere. It was making me exclusive, and I wasn't really changing the system as I hoped that I would change it. So fast forward to that is that then I was like, okay, let me go back. Then I did local shops like The Space, Big Blue, that had a variety of local designers. And what I like about them now is that they actually use a lot of black women as their designers. They also use, our body type is different. So when you go to those spaces and then I moved, of course, into global brands as well. And for me, the conscious decision was that I needed to tell myself that spirituality does not equate poverty, because I cannot be inspiring people to return back to their roots if the narrative that they know and understand about African spirituality is, I'm going to do this thing and, be 1856. So an embodiment of things. But when I found that there is great designers who make good, because for me it's about good quality clothing, then you don't have to shop all the time. Because I know we as women like to say, hi, it's retail therapy. I needed to do a lot of, I needed to do a lot of hardcore work to know that shopping does not heal my inner child wounds. So that, because I would buy and I would feel good, but then I needed to buy more. So I was very conscious. And I remember the first time I went and bought IPA to, well, I could definitely afford it. My thing was like, wow, the comfort, the quality. And when I went to Makhosa, I was like, ooh, like that, because even with the other brands that I buy from black women who are selling pre-owned. I'm very conscious about, for me, is black woman first before anybody else.
Okay.
That's the conscious decision that I made. And with those women, I don't need to be their brand, because I don't ask for anything. I buy things. I remember Primitive Native, they're also on Instagram. They actually posted and said, you are one of the, few public figures who actually want to purchase from us and not get stuff for free in terms of an endorsement. So, Napo from Josie Wanabadimu sent me stuff, and he said to me, Gogo, for you wore those shoes, because they make shoes. You wear those shoes, and I made 150,000 profit from your post.
Jeez.
Wow.
And for me, even when you speak, every time I hear people speak, I'm like, I still have to be like, oh, by the way, you're a brand. Oh, by the way, you're a brand. So even being conscious is like, by the way, you're a brand. By the way, you're a brand. But I feel like sometimes when we focus on, by the way, you're a brand, because my fear is losing my purposefulness and the intention to be impactful, and focus on popularity, because brands become popular but they don't have purpose and they're not impactful. to the very same people that they're popular to. So with me, I try by all means be intentional in the things that I do. So even when ngiyemgidini, ngiba intentional about how I will always dress in my Sangoma clothes, but make the most beautiful outfits, royal outfits. I wanted to say slaying outfits. We're speaking about slaying
Slay
outfits,
Gogo.
right? Yeah, people call me Slay Gogo, but because slay comes with so much negativity. But I think royal Gogo is a nice word or term to, and I'll pair it up with a whole lot of things. But it's a way in which we change mindsets, because we don't just change by preaching and teaching, we also change by embodying.
Jeez. You're probably, and I guess it's up to you to dispute this, you're the most famous Sangoma in the country, if not the continent. And then arguably, angazi noma izangoma idumile around the world. You might be the most popular Sangoma in the world.
In the world, I agree. In the world, I do definitely agree. I mean, last year, I was named by Brains magazine, a business magazine. It's an online magazine. It's one of the top 7 global magazines in the world, as one of the 500 influential people in the world.
Jeez, congrats.
And I made it to the cover of a business magazine in my Sangoma regalia. I wish you find that picture and you put it somewhere in this format. In my Sangoma, ngifake izinto zobungoma. And it is such an epic, beautiful picture. No makeup, nothing, but just to say that this is what I want to be celebrated for. I don't want to be celebrated because I wear fancy things or I'm slaying. I want to be celebrated because I am changing stories. I am changing the narrative. I'm demystifying the myths around what is Isangoma, because I'm a spiritual healer and teacher who's trained ebongomeni, who's trained as an energy healer, who's trained as a life coach, who's trained as a relationship coach, who's trained as a facilitator. So all those different modalities make me a spiritual healer and teacher, because ubungoma alone is very limited. And that's why in my work and in my capacity, I can reach the global stages. I did a TEDx talk in 2019. That I take my head off for anyone who does a TED, because it takes 6 months of preparation. You need to script it. You need to know your 15 minutes off by heart. And I speak from the heart. I go with the flow. I'm intuitive. But there, you need to go through your script. How you even speak. You can't even swallow words. They need you to be eloquent and articulate. And even they time your pace. You are given a speaker's coach to coach you for TED, because that's a global platform.
Jeez, thank you so much. So you told us you're from Alex, Tomazanya Lai Komora.
See, that's what I don't like. That's why I don't like having conversations before the interview starts.
Sure.
You did not tell them.
Yeah.
She did not tell them. So when you say you told us.
But I'm
Sorry.
trying to introduce it again.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Nyapolisi.
No, Namnyak So, Gogo Dineo had said off air that she's from Alex. Girl from Alex Komora, you mentioned that you've been in corporate and you were black conscious. How do you move from Alex into corporate, become black conscious, and then find yourself in Ubungoma? How does that journey go?
I invite everybody to go see my TED Talk,
Okay.
because I don't only move from Alex, I move from a deep charismatic Christian faith to African spirituality. So I was born and bred, I like to say this, I was born and bred in the dusty golden roads of Alexandra Township.
Come on.
Take so much pride in it, because as it is, it crafted the masterpiece that I have become. I am very proud of where I come from. I am proud that I was raised by my maternal side of the family, and my paternal side of the family played a role, because izinto zase Alex so zihlangene, right?
Yes.
Ubaba mbekanga 20 seconds ayo check. It was like just like so ugogo, I was raised by strongly by my maternal side of the family, but my grandmother also played a part. So the roles that my grandparents played, my grandfather, the most divine human being I've ever encountered, my first love of a man, gentle and natural. So he is the man that actually, when I hear toxic masculinity, men are trash, it really bothers me, because that's something that's not actually our origin, because the divine masculine is there to nurture and protect. and provide security. And that's what my grandfather was. My grandfather umfundisa ubuntu. I used to Alex in Amatablab. So you go from this one to go to the other street. And he engraved in me the spirit of kindness, because he always say, as much as you know where you are going, but the ones who are sitting in front of you know the way much better. So greet, respectful, you know. So, and he used to tell me stories. That's how I learned storytelling, by the way, how to tell stories, because I did storytelling as a profession. I wrote stories for Tiger Woods, the former CEO of NetBank. So I did a lot of those things. I wrote corporate stories as a way of Africanizing the narrative. So my grandfather used to tell me stories about when he used to be in Zanini, Kulobedu, and when he passed away, because he passed away when I was 12, my grandmother took over, and my grandmother is Indian, half Indian, half colored, and would tell me stories about Vas makeup and Vas makeup stories, you know, and yes, and Utom Chan, no Slim Chan, you know, but they were not as fascinating as my. They were interesting, but the way in which my grandfather would tell stories was to actually remember the key principle of Ubuntu, you know, what we find in the 44 laws of Ma'at, you know, what we find in the 10 commandments of the Bible. So this is what has driven me, because I knew that even though I was born in this environment, and when I grew up in it from a very young age, that there was nothing wrong with being in Alex until I stepped outside of Alex, until I got an academic scholarship to go to an American school. So that's where the little twang comes from.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, when I go back, I used to like, because it helped me. It gave me rank. It gave me rank, honestly.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it gave me rank, and especially coming from Alex, and you have to come into, you know, a group of young people who come from very privileged backgrounds, and I got there by my academics. Not by privilege. It's because what I was privileged was my intellectuality. So I needed to fit in. You know, I remember one time I was at Milky Lane, if it still exists.
I remember it is Milky Lane.
Yes.
Best time to keep a Milky friend with, so
Yes.
it's
Keep us
Milky
strong,
Lane.
Right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't even afford a cone of ice cream. I couldn't. And I would see this, because I went, you know, as we were going into the new democracy, you know, I was left with 1 year at the current school. I went to Guapegilanga High School in Alexandra, and 2 years of my high school was just in a private school, 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and I had to sit there, watch these black kids who felt like anything outside their perimeters was not welcome. And I remember I went to the Keisha and I said, "Can I please have a glass of water?" And they all turned. And the ranking it gave me. When I went to shops, because this is what led me away, right? That things were not equal. So when I would go to shops, my first time going to Sentin Mall was when I was at the American International School, and they took us on every Friday would go on trips, because I went to a boarding school. I didn't have money to spend. So there I was at a retail store and shopping around. I love accessories. So I looked at these rings. When I went out, they stopped me. And I was like, what have I done, right? And the reason they stopped me, because I was black. And
Yes.
this was in the 90s. And I got body searched, even though where I told them I left the ring. Do you understand the trauma I experienced and how that broke my heart? So at that time, I said, something is wrong with the system. As much as I might think things are okay, and why is my house the way it is, and then when I go outside. So I started asking these kind of questions. And asking these kind of questions made me believe that then if there's a life outside these Alexandra, then I am deserving and I'm worthy of this life.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how or kanjani nokuthi ngizoqala kuphi, but I knew ukuthi I am not set for this life, because when I slept in my dormitory, it was luxury. I slept underneath the table in my grandmother's kitchen. That's where my bedroom was, with 4 of my cousins. So then I go there and it's my own room.
So lalile nyaweni.
Yay!
Yawazi ukulala enyaweni.
Yeah. Several times.
I think there's every black person can relate to ukulala enyaweni.
Yes, ukulala enyaweni. La ukudla amagwinya was luxury. Iskambelele. Do people know skambelele?
Yeah, it's that short.
Yes, I grew up with skambelele and makanyanisi. I even say, do you know wholesome?
Yeah, nobody wholesome.
Yeah, really wholesome.
Namakondansi.
Yes.
Oh, guys.
No, condance was privilege in my home. Like, it was like a privilege to have Konas nerama. Remember?
Yeah, you
We
remember
did
the
rama.
Now, na maligi na mga afford baba Erika kumule.
Yeah. I don't yo.
Na mali okutobisi Vaseline and tobisi Erika.
Yeah. The wholesome.
Yeah, the
wholesome.
Yeah, khona bagqobisi
Yes,
wholesome.
this Kobisi wholesome. Yeah, I want so what that life that exposed me to just the confines of Alexandra.
Yeah.
And I also kind of knew because when I was 10, somebody got killed in front of me, Alexandra. This was around when Mandela was being released, and there were the interpolitical warfare. Because my uncle was Azapo, my family was Azapo. They were not ANC. So, and yeah, I mean, there's many incidences that occurred that allowed for my young yet wise mind to really be curious about yeah.
And then from there, you moved to corporate after school?
No. After school, while I was in school, I had a mental breakdown. Well, I had a Lozi awakening, and I was taken to a mental institution. I stayed 6 months in Tara Hospital. They moved me from one diagnosis to another. They settled with temporal lobe epilepsy, and I was on medication for some time until one day I had another episode.
You didn't know at the time?
No, I didn't know at the time. And
You
because
believed that it was a mental breakdown?
No, I didn't know what to believe because,
Okay.
science told me I had a mental break. I was psychotic.
Okay.
And church told me I was demonic possessed. So, and none of the interventions seemed to aid my symptoms. They would relieve them, but it wasn't going away, right? So when I went from the school, then the mental breakdown, and then something interesting happened is that because I was in hospital, so I ended up not writing the exams here. I wrote a GED, which came from the state of, I think Maryland or something in the States. So I did an online, and online everything is verified, right?
Yeah.
This was in 1999. So I did an online exam, your address gets verified because if it doesn't, the system rejects it. But my diploma from the States got delayed by 6 months, and we don't have the same schooling calendar.
Yes.
So when I had to go to varsity, I couldn't, and my dad said, okay, we can do something for you. What course do you want to do? Baba Mbega only tavern. I mean, that's clap. Nay, that's what Konka is today. That's what my dad owned. And so my dad had aspirations that I'll go into business.
Yeah.
So when he said, what you want to do, I'll pay for you to do a diploma.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, great. I don't even have to do all these academic things. By then I was interested in the arts. So I wanted to do acting, I wanted to do journalism, advertising. And my dad was like, uzoba broke. I'm wasting my money. When you want to do community service where you don't get paid. And I did that. Sure. I moved into community service. I worked for a year at Hope Worldwide. This was in 2000 when the HIV/AIDS pandemic was actually now becoming a serious issue.
Yeah.
Yes,
And I volunteered for a year. And can you believe for that year, Benkola Matamati every Friday?
Wow.
Yes, I got paid with a pack of tomatoes and actually, or some small vegetables, because I was a peer educator, and I also offered counseling to those who were recently found that they were infected by HIV. And so yeah, there was no money for me, and my payment was like whatever vegetables that were left after the people who were impacted and affected by the virus, I would take. And most
Sure.
of the time it would be some tomatoes left, and I would bring that back home as my salary. And I was at work 5 days a week,
Your father was right.
So my dad was like, my dad sent me there, but my dad, and thank you, because then, the love for people, the love for service got cultivated in me being a volunteer. And can I tell you, up to this date, there is no job I get that I've went looking for it. All the jobs come find me. Brains found me, what I'm doing right now with Castle Mustard found me. Everyone found me. Metro FM found me. No, I don't. That's why I'm not surprised. I
Also
invite
found
you.
so you knew.
Easy, yes. No, because you see, so from doing that work,
Yes, ma'am.
that's how I moved into corporate, because somebody saw me at Alexandra High as these were my peers, but because I think I was smarter, so I was being metric way than my peers at the time.
Sure.
So, but when I went there, when I taught, and people just loved how I taught, and like, no man, there's something, and then I got invited to an international organization, and like they say, the rest is history. And I moved up because in corporate, that's when I started studying different things, and you know, and all of the corporate jobs I've had, including performances as an artist that I've gotten, there's no way where I've applied. If you ask me to apply, no, it's not for me.
Sure.
This is before I became Gogo Dineo.
Sure.
This is where I was just Maria, I was Alexandra. That's
Oh,
my
Maria.
first name, Marie, right? Or Dineo, and people were like, oh no, we heard about you, you know. Even when I was a PRE in 2010, because that's when I went to train as a Sangoma. I lost my job end of 2010 because we were going through the financial crisis. So I was working for Rios. Actually, they're across the road from here.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yes, the company I used to work for. So they're a consultancy firm that does a lot of strategic work. So my boss said to me, well, you know, Dineo, it's a bad time. I think because I was sleeping a lot at work. In the middle of a meeting. If you call me while I was training, I would be half asleep by now. But, you know, and I was sleeping in a lot of meetings.
Clearly, the parliament before EFF joined, they were
So I think when they needed to see where they have to cut their losses, I was the first to go, you know, and said, but you can stay on as an associate, because they let me go as an employee and become an associate, meaning, you know, as work comes in, then you get contracted.
Sure.
So yeah, and then this, you know, I stayed 6 months at Penuel, no work. That was the most turbulent time for me, because I was like, you promised. I mean, I said yes, because I didn't go at Penuel knowing a lot about ancestors and really believing in them. I'm in my programming of Christianity, and it is a program. It's from when my grandfather died at 12 until I left the church at 23. So can you imagine like how much programming? And I left halfway through my theology studies to become umfundisi.
Wow.
So then, you know, at 18 I find out after my mental illness, when we've been giving her medication, and then I remember this guy saying, yeah, in a paper. I was like, oh my God.
No ways.
I can't deal with this right now.
Not for Maria.
No, I threw it in the bin.
I can imagine.
You know, even though I had an episode that lasted half a day, if not the whole day, and the only thing that brought me back was mood. That's how much the doctrine of Christianity was in my head, that I saw this thing. It helped me. They prayed for me. Ngabiza umakhelwane wasezesisiyazongithandazela. Baba says Zayoni, umunyu pezulu ungene Zayoni, and I called the fire. It didn't help, right? It didn't help. And eventually I think Baba Mwapuma wayogumunyu Baba se hostele, because that's where at that time most healers would be, you know, umunyu Baba Mzulu was a concussion of medicinal plants, dried herbs, and my dad made me sniff it because my neck was it was like this. I couldn't put it back for hours. And I was crying, and all I saw, I said, Ma, I just see dead people.
Yeah,
I think I'm about to die, Ma.
That's demons. That's definitely demons.
And I'm seeing them in black clothing with chains and gold things, because that was how my level of consciousness interpreted my ancestors' messages.
Yeah.
Because my level of consciousness had Christianity. So anything black was evil, right? Anything coffin was evil, and gold chains and all of those things. And these piercings I've already had. So I was like, please take off all my piercings. I think Jesus is about punishing me right now, you know. And they did, but it didn't help. So 1, 2, not yet, and I remember like I was heavily congested and green slime, probably from the medication that I was also consuming, you know. And the minute it did that, I went back, and, you know, my neck came back to normal. And yeah, it came back to normal, and I was tired. I slept. Did I believe? No.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. That was going to be one of my questions. Please carry on.
You know, the nice thing about interviewing is Sangoma. I answer the questions before you ask them.
I can see that. Powerful.
Every interview, like, next question. You ask that's the gift, you know, because, So, I didn't believe. Even Mlothswa in 2010, I really didn't believe. But where am I now? I don't believe. Belief is taught. I know, because I've experienced. So I know. You don't need to convince me otherwise. You know, if you say they demons, whatever, thank you very much. Really? So what does that make you, baby Timon? Because uban going to store, you know. So it's that. So I don't need anyone to convince me anymore, because when I went to Pehlweni, for me, the peace I felt that I've never felt before, and the need to be chasing kind of subsided for some reason. I remember being at peace, and this is at the time where I thought I was making it, you know, breaking through the cracks of poverty.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be this, and I was, because I'm a first grandchild in my maternal family. Ngumdala, ngusiso mdala, ngizukule sidala, and everything is looked up to me. You know, the first one to buy a house at Cosmo City, you know, the first one to buy a car, the first one to get married and have all her 4 children with the same husband. These are big milestones in black communities.
That last
so,
one.
You know, it's like...
And it is, bro.
Yeah, it is.
All 4
I mean,
children
you
with
know,
one husband.
You know, in our community.
Sure.
Oh, you mean in the... Okay. It's
Yeah.
Let's not talk about
Yeah.
that.
Let's not talk about
And it was in my maternal side, because my grandfather prided himself. He didn't want to go into a polygamous marriage because his own family homestead was broken down because of polygamy, right? And he needed to leave school so he can go work for his siblings of his mother's side, because the dad took on the second wife.
Sure.
And the family dismantled, and the other children were left on the periphery to fend for themselves. And as you know, Uputom Dala needed to leave school. He quit school so he can take care of his siblings.
Yeah.
So to him, that left a wound. And polygamy is another topic for another time. But it left, because me saying this doesn't mean that I don't believe in polygamy.
Yeah.
But let me mention, I like the fact that one person will ask one question and then you just go on, because that's passion speaking.
Yeah.
Because you're not a scripted person.
Yeah.
You're speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the questions I wanted to ask when you were speaking to us was, you buy from black women first. So then obviously that means you're a feminist.
No.
Hit me.
No. And I hate when people say, hate is a strong word. I don't like it when you say you're a feminist, you are an activist, you know, you are this and that, because we are multidimensional beings, according to me. And I think as multidimensional beings, we need to understand as well that in order for us to serve the collective, what is the need of this time? And for me, for the collective to be restored into hold, is to bring those who've been marginalized by the collective. So when I'm saying black women first, is because you can say I'm feminist and somebody can say I'm racist,
Of course.
right? And
course.
somebody can say you are even homophobic because is it straight black women?
Yes.
Right? But that's what a one-dimensional perspective of thinking does to our society. And that's why we're finding ourselves not really progressing as a people. I'm making that conscious choice because I want to also celebrate people who might have felt what I felt as a black woman.
Yini ubungoma?
Ubungoma, it's the healing aspect of African spirituality. It's one part of the healing. Because gunobungoma, so meaning healers who are born from music and dance. Because ingoma, sivuswa ingoma, right? So the ones who have actually come through us to be one with us. And this is, I need to make clear, it doesn't give you a gift. You are born with it. So if I have amadlozi amaningi ngihamba nabo, so meaning that my own soul said yes before they even came in, because I understood that they have probably done this before, they have walked this journey before. So when I incarnated as Dineo, I needed warriors to walk this journey with me. So they are the warriors that are walking this journey with me. So ingoma meishaywa noma ikhala ivusa the warriors that you walk with, ivusa the guides that you walk with, so that that which is gifted in you can be remembered by you. Because from the ages of 0 to 2, we are radiating as God's energy. So we are God as 0 to 2. We are God, right? Because at that point, our cognitive brain is not as active. So that's why you see a child, when they're hungry, they cry. They are aware of their divinity and they're unapologetic about it. From 2 years, your cognitive brain starts to kick in and it becomes functioning. So it absorbs the programming of the adults around it. So once it does that and it moves you from your God self, that's why when you turn 18, like when I did, and then boom, mental illness, then I'm like, because I've forgotten at 0 to 2 that nobody's doing anything to me. I made an agreement. That's why Dineo is here.
Is that the reason why you would experience some things, as they would say in English, deja vu?
You would experience a lot of things when you are gifted. Not only deja vu. Deja vu, it's when you have a moment of I've been here before, because not only Bangoma experience it. Anyone can who is spiritually inclined. Remember, we are all gifted. Why are we here? This is your calling, right? You've always been about transforming spaces, bringing new answers into, from the music industry to DJing to there's a lot. That's your gift. And living in your gift that is outside what the world programs and see as fit comes with huge challenges. The higher your calling, the greater the mountains you need to summit. Similar as me. So you need to understand that deja vu, anyone who's spiritually connected can have a deja vu, because deja vu is remembering a life before this one, is remembering a moment before this one, that I've been here, probably through your dream state. Because in the dream state, when people say, hey, I'm dreaming, you are not dreaming, you are recalling. You are actually accessing archived information of past, present, and future timelines.
A lot of people, I wouldn't say they're in denial, but what do you say to people whom we have been so programmed to believe in certain beliefs that when these types of information is presented to us, we reject it?
I think right now we're sitting with a lot of, when you ask me in 2013 when I started, I would say people reject it. I feel like people, in an attempt to accept it, they get hyped by it. So I am not encountering a lot of people who reject it. I'm encountering a lot of people who get hyped by it, therefore fall into false programs of what the healing arts of African spirituality is about. So like you'd say, oh, I have deja vu, so I'm gifted, right? You've got a financial crisis and it's a gift. Really, you are financially irresponsible. Do you know how you're managing your money? Or it's either you are gifted or you're a gambler, or you use your money recklessly. So for me, it's for us to really be paced as much as we get excited, because now it feels like everybody's coming out. You proud Sangoma. I'm changing, the narrative and doing that. But we now think that African spirituality is the healing, I call it the healing arts, or Izubungoma, or that's what it is. But that's one part. People might be going through a whole lot of other, when I said we are multidimensional, we are made of the physical body. This is what you are seeing here. We are made of the mental body. We are made of the emotional body. We're made of the spiritual body, which also incorporates our soul. Our soul has an etheric. Etheric is our purpose. That when we remember why we're here, it's our etheric body. And then our astral, which travels when our body is sleeping. Astral is what retrieves information. If you've heard, I believe in that we have more than one life. I believe I'm an old soul, and I believe I have lived so many lives, and this lifetime, it's my last life incarnating in the physical as a human being, because the next journey of mine is I'm ascending as an ascendant master. I am going to be seated at the throne next to the great teachers of this world, your Buddhas, your Jesuses, because that's what I've come to do. And I know that I've got 100 years to live.
What you've just said is similar to what Penuel would say.
Yes.
And a lot of people would be on Penuel's case, even on my case, for hanging out with him, calling himself a god. What are your reasons of calling yourself a god with what she's just said over the past couple of minutes?
I first want to start by saying that she's wrong for answering my questions before I ask them.
I told you though.
I wanted to ask if everyone is gifted, and you said yes. There was another question that you answered as well. Oh, it was about the one that every girl now and her friend now have a calling, apparently. So my desire to...
But sorry to interrupt. Every girl and a friend has a calling. But is that calling to become a Sangoma? Not really. Let's be clear.
And you emphasize that sometimes... I wanted to ask about Uktagata. You spoke about Uktagata. A lot of things people want to place on an external thing instead of looking within. Would know, this is you, So that's part of... Maybe let me start there. That's part of my thing with me being God. I don't want to assign any good or bad that happens to me to external forces because of the programming we've had from things like Christianity, for example. If there is such a thing as a calling, and if ancestors speak in us, through us, and if I'm carrying the memories and the archives of people that came before me, one of the cool things was we both share Indian ancestors, for example. They are screaming loud to me that I have to ascend to the highest level of being on earth. And currently, for the normal human being, that's a God. Not a prophet, not a king, not a president. It's a God, so that I don't have to answer to any source. If I say I'm a prophet, I still have to answer, which God sent you? If I say I'm a president, who voted for you? If I say I'm God, as soon as I say something, it's full stop. So then I don't have to explain to anyone else because it comes from me and I'm learning and working through the environment that I'm in. So answer your question.
What do you say to people who criticize that or who criticize you for it?
I've got a lot of answers to give people and I try my best to simplify it as much as possible. Gogo Dineo speaking about multidimensional human beings, speaking about our different existences, physical, emotional, whatever. We can speak deja vu, and she spoke about archives, and before she answered me before I asked, because archives of the past, she's like, no, there's archives of the future, because then we move beyond time being linear, and it goes, we can go very deep in conversation, but for the normal human being that's asking that question, because it's normally from a place of ignorance or from a place of wanting to attack you. So you need to find a simple way to disarm them without necessarily harming them, but planting a seed that will hopefully germinate once they leave. So explaining certain things to them like, no, I just don't think you understand. And whatever you feel is right, because I think she said it in some of her answers, it's fine. You're not ready, but please watch the space. One of the cool things with working with human beings, whether you're a healer, whether you're a therapist, is you work with so much psychology and you start understanding programming. Christianity, if you come from Alex, if you come from... So if someone says, Mboni, angazi nomi wholesome, nomi Eric. Oh my gosh, we had that when we were kids. That's just the trick that musicians and other psychological masters use to try and unlock you. And when you spend enough time with people and you see, oh, she's wearing my clothes and she likes it, you'll be like, yazi khona ma friends engiwathandayo mina. You start like, I think this guy is speaking to me. But you've just become a master of human psychology, which may be a gift in itself. And the question becomes, now that you can read people, are you going to con them out of 500,000? Or are you going to make them join your cult and make you do funny things? Or are you actually going to unlock this person and be like, I've been watching you and I think you are determined for something so much better. And I think you just need to own it. And if you want to assign it to me as this guy that saw me one day, that's fine. But I want you to win. And that's all it is.
But you know also is that, I mean, this science has told us that, Southern Africa is the cradle of humankind. We are more than 3 million years old. Our religion is only 2,000 years old.
Christianity.
Yeah, right. And yeah, there's no any other religion that's 1 million old. None.
Yeah, but Hinduism is 4,000. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that none is because
that old.
If this is the cradle of humankind, and I'm using Christianity because about 70 to 80% of South Africans are Christians, and even in the world we've got about 1.5 billion followers of Christianity. So it is the biggest, because when you look in Hinduism, which is a faith system before I became a Sangoma that I really followed because of my Indian heritage, they don't say it's a religion, they say it's a culture. They don't speak to gods, they speak to different manifestations of God. So if you're speaking, you are wanting to direct and channel the energy of money, you'll speak to Lakshmi, so Ganesh for something else. But anyway, so I'm speaking with the context and the majority of the people. So if Africa is 300 million years old, and religion is not even 100 years old. So who were we before religion told us who we are? And I think for me, when I left the church, that was my inquiry. But when I moved from the church and went into like this radical black consciousness, I also saw that a lot of everything that we still have as Africans still has its programming in religion.
Yes.
Even Pan-Africanists, because they were like, no, but you see, the only way, the minute for me you say the only way, I'm troubled. Because that's not what spirituality is about. So even if when I say the only way you can connect to your ancestors is to phahla SBU and ngesiZulu, then I have a problem with that. Right?
Do you know where I end currently, and I know it goes further back, is language.
Yeah.
So you're speaking Pan-Africanism, Black consciousness, religion. For me, a lot of what we call civilization and whatever today started with language, because that becomes for me the biggest difference between us and animals. Because as soon as you have language, then you start creating constructs. And if one of the early constructs is religion, then it becomes the base for everything. Every story, every law, every system that you create, unfortunately. But for me, once we can move beyond language, and I think that's the beauty of things like music. That's the beauty of things like food, of nature. The fact that you don't need a tree to speak to you in a formalized language, because as soon as that language got formalized, it came with whoever created it and their desired indoctrination or worldview. Yeah.
No, but that's correct, and because is when I say the essence of who we are. So I would say we are physical manifestations. We are God here experiencing, thyself.
I watch one of
Thyself, and by thyself, because when you hear God in the Sotho language, Ramasedi. So it's about the divine masculine and feminine frequency coming together, and in that unionship then life is formed, right? So it's not about, because I struggle sometimes even when I use it, because it's easy for people to reference who I'm talking about. But when I say God, man, there's an image of a guy that I don't like, and that troubles me, because I cannot be wanting to engage with that higher level of consciousness with that image, because it's going to perpetuate and manifest the things that have left me outside of the margin of things. So what do I mean by that? If I say God, I do see a white man,
yes,
with a beard in heaven waiting to punish me and making sure that I do not sin.
Yes.
We don't even understand what sin is. Sin is Greek, came from the Greeks. That means you've missed the mark, and we're gonna miss the mark. That's why we are here to have a human experience. We're gonna miss the mark all the time, because we are God experiencing. If you read the Conversations with God by Neil, it speaks, we are God experiencing thyself here. So if we then want to be like, no, but we were highly God in our purity and innocence from 0 to 2, then we had the programming, we had the religion, we had the cultural belief systems, we had the environmental contexts, we had a lot of things that programmed us. Then it moves us from our God self. Then we started seeking God outside of ourselves, because everything said God is outside of you. I don't believe in that concept of God, because why that is so that people don't have to be held accountable and responsible.
Yes.
Colonizers don't have to be held accountable and responsible for the injustices, the slavery, I almost said something, but because I don't know, like basically amanyala bawenzile, right? Right? Inyuva ranks le bayenzile kubantu abamnyama, and we can just turn the other cheek, and we can say, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. Because even the whole Christ consciousness, we're confusing it. Because when I have these, when I get into conversations with Christians to say, yeah, Mara Christ has risen, it's on the third day, that's us. There is a divine number in African spirituality. Things happen in cycles of 3, because it's when the Trinity comes together. It's when the sacred triad, which is now called the Trinity, we call it the sacred laws, the sacred logos, and the sacred order. So what is the order? Umntwana, there's an order for us for conception, duration of pregnancy, and that's why we had people who would hold space for umfazi to make sure that child comes at full term, because your pelvic bone will be, ready by then. You can then deliver the way that you need to be delivering. So there is an order in everything that we did as Africans. It's just that well, as we know, it is not captured. Because I had another disagreement with another scholar who said, yeah, our information as Africans was not held in books. I'm like, that's an assumption. It got destroyed. I mean, when we speak about one of the biggest libraries, it went all the way from North Africa to East Africa. That was underground. And what did Alexander the Great come and do? Yeah, but no, stole what they stole the books and bent it. And who is he to his Greek people? A hero, somebody to be said, one of the greatest warriors, right? Right. But what? And who is Shaga? I remember when I was at Metro, and one of the people said, "I can't believe you are promoting somebody who sold us to slavery." And I said, "Be careful which history books you are reading. You know, whose narrative." You cannot be telling me history that favors the hunter because we were the hunted. So everything about the hunted will have to be distorted to make the hunters be like they saved us, you rescued us.
Whoever wins the war writes the history, right?
Exactly. So it's those things, and I know this question is going to come from people to say, yeah, Mara, if we had our thing together and we were all spiritual, what happened? What happened? Why did we get colonized? Because we had land, we had everything that we did. When we forgot to say that there is this sacred triad that we need to follow, when we started tampering with the templates that when we became incarnated and became humans, we were given organic templates on how to operate, then things went disorderly. Then that's when what we call the reptilians or the colonizers or whatever word, or the white supremacists came, and they started to destroy, because then they found a way, and they didn't come here and say, oh, look at the mirror. They didn't. They came, and they came with the seeking of wanting to be one of us. So that's why I don't also sometimes agree with when we become extremely revolutionary, like ban everything. Because I come from that movement. I come from the Marcus Garvey movement, Africa for Africans, Asia for Asians. But that is because what about us, who my grandmother is Indian. But if we say Africa is the cradle of humankind, it means all forms of humankind that left Africa to go, because we were going to discover what was outside our continents. Abantu manje umuntu uthi uthwasa umdawu, right? In the Bangoma thing, like, hey, umdawu buyaphi wena, why are you speaking this funny language? Or umuntu athi hayi uyothwasa umdawu ke Motswana sizulu lona le sisetsa kae re kena kae ko dilong tsa matsulu lona le tlo re botsa, not understanding gore what is currently happening. We need to return back to our essence, because even ebungomeni there's a lot of fragmentation, there's a lot of distortions, there's a lot of divisions, and that comes from religious programming. Mina ngithwasa indawo better than lo thwasa isiXhosa. Hayi kaloku ndenza ithongele emhlophe ndaqhela ebhoke zi20 wena you see, that's religion, because it wants to conquer by dominating and controlling. I say religion is a very narcissistic system, because it's about me, right? Spirituality is like
us.
You know, spirituality is what the sun is. If you look at the metaphor of the sun, we've got sun in Africa, Europe has sun, Asia has sun, right? So meaning that in the way and that the rays are beaming, it's not the same. But do you see the sun rays competing when the sun sets? When you say Africa, you are giving more vitamin D, and you have melanated people who are immune to a lot of things. And people don't know that being melanated means that we are immune to a lot of things. That's why we would want to diss black-skinned women or black-skinned, darker-skinned people, because vitamin D, I mean, what happened during COVID? Hey, Tony vitamin D, right? Knowing for us what is happening right now. Scientists are wanting to marginalize us because they're struggling to understand their predictions, because that's what I'm saying. Don't tell me that you only believe in what science tells you, because those facts can be manipulated and distorted to meet whatever program they want to push. They confuse goods. The Africa rates we predicted, these deaths we were seeing, this misfortune, because we needed to push whatever agenda we needed to push. What happened? Understand what happened? When we, in January 2021, we were having almost 3,000 infection rates of COVID. It went but within that 2 weeks, it went down drastically. Science can explain it. Hayi safuta phela saqhuma thina sapalaza sihambe langeni. Yabona?
March 21st, umkhulu Nsingiza said isililo sikanomkhubulwana, autumn equinox. June 21st, winter solstice, African Christmas, the festival of Sokar. He said September 23rd, African New Year, the spring equinox. Spoke about the 23rd of December. He spoke about the lotus plant, the lotus ceremony, but what they would say, umkosi wezibu. And what I would like to ask from you is your understanding of or maybe sort of breaking it down to us who don't understand that much and who are learning this knowledge, your understanding of the African calendar.
My understanding, honestly, is very limited because I've also learned it from Umkhulu Ntsingisa, because when I was trying to get you on, I was doing teachings with him on really understanding what the African calendar is. But even when you look at it from just a logical perspective, it makes sense for a new year to be in spring. Because new is about newness, right? The old has died, because one of the sacred orders is that things happen in rhythm, and we need to respect the rhythm of nature, but we're not. Why is it Lupega so? Because one of the orders is to say that everything we celebrate, rituals we perform, have to happen in that cosmic order. Our cosmic order is messed up because we celebrate New Year on the 1st of January. But we way past the New Year phela by that time, because on the 23rd, and that's why bathi ubona ukuthi abantu bayahlanya ngoba ihlahla ziyaqhuma, that is our sign. So for me to say I know everything about the African calendar, I know a lot, but this one I don't. I've been also watching Twitter quite a lot. I moved away from it when I got trolled myself. And it becomes quite disheartening that we are so invested in making mockery of our own.
Yes.
We are so invested in making mockery of our own. I want to repeat that.
Yes.
Because that which you pull down in a black person, you're pulling down on yourself. The fact that you will comment and retweet 100 tweets that, make mockery of a black great person shows that you feel like you are a nobody as a black person. Because abelungu abanasikhathi salezo zinto. Instead umlungu ubheke ukuthi uzokunikeza i-contract kanjani ngoba ufuna uku-extenda ngale, and they're thinking of their cousin electrician, they're thinking of those things. But we are busy watching those who are trying to actually do something and, break the stereotypes of black equates nothingness. When it becomes excellent, it becomes questionable. Mina, I was trolled for having snakes, I was trolled for being expensive, and I'm a scam, because there has never been a Sangoma that comes out and unapologetically, I don't want to be called a traditional doctor. What do you mean by traditional doctor? Sangoma, who is an African spiritual healer, because the essence of what I heal is understanding where are things stuck in your spirit. So for me is that it's the same thing as with hair, and we need to be very careful because, before as a Pan-Africanist, I was like, no, everyone must grow their hair naturally and lock it, Rasta. And even though I wasn't Rastafarian, I almost did. I walked off the Rastafarian church. The drums were nice and the music, I think it's the Sangoma. Yeah, no, but I think for me, when you are running from yourself, you will seek yourself in many places.
True.
And now that I found myself...
What a punchline. Please say that again. When you are running from yourself?
You will seek yourself in all these places. But once you find yourself, you don't need to seek anymore. And that's why I Dalang Kudla, because I was running away from myself.
Well, you weren't running. You were trying to find yourself.
Yeah.
It's the story of the prodigal son in the Bible as well, which was probably stolen because the Bible is a great piece of plagiarism.
No, I think it's both, because remember at 18 I was told I had the calling.
Yes.
And at 16 I knew something was different, because at the Bible school I had what we call 2 premonitions. So premonition is seeing what's going to happen before it happens. And I told the 2 students, and those things did happen. So part of me was running, because part of the programming was like, but what I was seeking was a deeper understanding of who is God than what the Bible or what religion has taught us to be God.
So siyabonga uNkulunkulu akubusise, abaphansi mabaqhubeke babe nawe, mabakuphathe gogo. Sicela uqhubekele phambili ushare knowledge eyakithi ezabantu abamnyama. Sicela ukuthi usiphilele, ube nempilo, uphile uqine ukhule. Uzukhokhobe maningane zakhe ayishade nazo zibe nezizukulu, ube nezizukulu zezizukulu. Sifuna ukukubona in future uzifanela njengokhokho wethu sebashiya, may their souls rest in peace, all
Yeah.
of our ancestors. And the last one, whom I always say, when an elder like our Koko, Uvusamazulu Kredo Mutwa dies, a library is burnt.
Yeah.
And may you live that long. May you continue to share the knowledge. And thank you for your bravery. Thank you for being unapologetic about what you believe in and our culture, and just sharing the knowledge, especially now using the internet to educate the younger African brothers and sisters out there.
Definitely.
Siyabonga.
So,
Thokoza. Guys, we'll see you on the next video. Starting from next week, we've got an episode Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 12 o'clock. So we drop on Mondays, just me and Penuel, and then we're going to drop episodes with guests on Wednesdays, and then we're going to drop episodes with guests on Fridays. So 3 episodes a week now. It's because of you guys. But you know what makes me happy is that we've delivered what you've been asking. You've been asking for Gogo Dineo, like if you can see all of the episodes for the Pasing Lonyaku Khalil and your name there, they are always asking for you. So that's why I'm definitely sure they're gonna want you back. So guys, we'll see you on the next video. God bless you.
This is the Hustler's Corner.